Hey everyone, it's Greg Houle here. I'm releasing a quick bonus episode today because this is the day that my book, The Putnams of Salem, a novel of power and betrayal during the Salem witch trials, is finally out into the world. That's right, the book is finally here. So I wanted to take some time to give you a little bit of insight into how and why I wrote this novel and what I hope readers will take away from it. The idea for this book began 3 years ago. As I mentioned in our previous episode, The Putnams, it was in 2021 while walking the streets of Salem, Massachusetts on a warm summer day that I first got the idea. Honestly, I hadn't given the Salem witch trials much thought before that moment, despite the fact that I'm an ancestor of major participants and have nurtured a lifelong interest in history. Yet that day, 3 years ago, my mind kept going back to my ancestors and what they were thinking in 1692. What thoughts were running through their head? It sounds simple, almost quaint, really. But I guess I was looking to get to the very heart of why this tragic moment in history happened. What drove the actions of the accusers, and how did it all get so out of control? We know a lot about what happened during the Salem witch trials. There are an abundance of records and transcripts that help us piece together the details. But the maddening part of it all, at least for me, is that we don't really know what the people involved were thinking while these events were taking place. Of course, that's not strictly true. There are plenty of people who wrote about what they were thinking, both for and against the witch hunt. But even those writings don't really give us a full picture. After all, people's writings don't always reflect what they actually think. Oftentimes people write for posterity or to present some specific version of their thoughts that may or may not be embellished in some way. I wanted to know what was really going on in their minds as these remarkable events unfolded. The main characters of my book are my ancestors: Thomas Putnam Jr., the 40-year-old patriarch of the Putnam family, and my 7th great-grandfather on my mother's side. His grandfather and father had come to Salem about 60 years earlier, and the Putnams had become one of the region's largest landholders by the latter half of the 17th century. The other character is Anne Putnam Jr., Thomas's oldest daughter, who was 12 years old at the time of the witch crisis. Anne, of course, was among the people, most of whom were teen and tween girls, who claimed to be afflicted by so-called witches. Anne was the most prolific accuser of anyone during the Salem witch crisis. Of course, we can read Thomas Putnam's arrogant and bombastic letters to the judges, but I was more concerned with his authentic thoughts and feelings. I wanted to explore what he could possibly have been hoping to accomplish with the dozens of accusations he made against his neighbors. And then there's Anne. Were her afflictions some kind of conversion disorder brought on by the fire and brimstone preachings of her ministers? Regardless of their cause, her experiences that year were undoubtedly frightening. And not only for her. Thomas and his wife and others who witnessed Anne's strange behavior had to be terrified by it. In a world where the devil was a constant threat, what else could have explained what was happening? Of course, it's extraordinarily difficult for anyone to understand what's going on in anyone else's mind, let alone somebody who lived more than 330 years ago. But that doesn't make trying to understand such a thing any less tantalizing. So I decided to explore my ancestors, the Putnams, in my writing. And more than anything else, I wanted to trace their downward spiral during that tragic and horrible year. Ultimately, that's what the Putnams of Salem is about. I wrote this book in first person, from both Thomas and Anne's perspectives, weaving their narrative together in intermittent sections. I did this because I wanted readers to be able to get inside each of their minds in that moment, to experience the same tunnel vision, the same confusion, the same frightening crisis that each of them felt as it was happening. They didn't have the benefit of hindsight like we do, and I wanted to try to recreate that sense for readers as well. To be absolutely clear, The Putnams of Salem is fiction. Obviously, we have no idea what the everyday thoughts and conversations of these people were. I've invented these thoughts and conversations, but the characters themselves and the world they inhabit are all based on real historical fact. And be forewarned, there's a bit of a twist at the end of the novel. I'm not going to reveal it here, of course, but I'll tell you that I included this to amplify the themes that run through the narrative, particularly the notion of trying to gain control and power in a situation where you feel like you're losing those things. Writing this novel over the past 3 years has truly been a labor of love, but there's no question that it's also been labor. I wrote and rewrote most of the novel very early each morning while sipping coffee in the pre-dawn darkness, just wanting to set the scene for you there. I hope you'll give it a read and let me know what you think. You can learn more at theputnamsofsalem.com. That's theputnamsofsalem.com. The book is also available on Amazon and other book retailers, so I hope you'll check it out. Thank you all for listening, and thank you so much for your support over this past year. We have more episodes to come, including a very special live expert panel discussion that will celebrate our 1-year anniversary of the show at the end of September. Stay tuned for more details about this exciting event soon. I'll see you next time.